Okay, today we're going to be doing sine law. Again, we're going to start off with the proof, but the important information is right here. You'll probably put a big box around this because that's the part you have to memorize. We're splitting down the middle here. So let's run through the left side and it'll continue on the right side. In triangle ADC, so ADC, they just give us the Pythagorean theorem, so hypotenuse squared equals the other two sides squared and added together, and we rearranged for h. In triangle BDC, we did the exact same thing, so we end up getting a squared equals h squared, and then this piece right here is c minus x all squared. So this whole side length is c minus this x here gives us this piece here. So if we look, that's fine, and we solve for h squared here. So we solve for h squared in both spots. This is the same as this, so we can make this and this equal. When we expand this using FOIL, we get this right here. And then we ended up solving for b squared. Then we also know that the cosine of A is adjacent over hypotenuse. So we wrote that out here and we solve for x. And the reason we're doing that is because we'd like to replace this x right here so that it's only in terms of A, B, and C, because that's what the original triangle was, A, B, and C. So we end up substituting this in for x, which goes right here. And then we rearrange it a little, just because that's how we memorize the formula. This A comes to the other side. This B comes to the other side as well. And we multiply everything by -1. Again, if you're stressed, you can ask your teacher tomorrow about the proof. But again, you're wanting to memorize this. Now, I don't like memorizing this formula for A, B, and C. I like to memorize it for patterns. So I'm going to run through that because then you can substitute directly into the formula. So if we look at this, we have a side here, and way over here we have its opposite angle. You have to remember those two positions. Those two match up. We have our angle, that's equal, and then, we have our angle, and that's squared on the left, and at the end of the equation you're going to have its opposite angle. What's happening on the inside is you have the other two sides squared and added together. It looks like the Pythagorean theorem right at the beginning here. You're going to get -2, and then whatever these two sides were, and then cos of your angle, and it's going to be the capital version of this one. It just saves you memorizing 3 different forms. We have the A squared form. There's a B squared and a C squared for all the other sides. So again, we'll run through this when we see the examples on the next slide. So when do we use the cosine law? And more importantly, when do we use the cosine law instead of the sine law? Well, there's these 2 points here, but I use this one the most. Let's go through all of them. 1, you know 3 sides. You know 3 sides. If you know 3 sides, then you can use the cosine law. Or if you know 2 sides and a contained angle. So that's this scenario over here. You know this side, you know this side, and you know the angle in between those 2 sides. Now I like option 3 the best. If you can't use the sine law, then it's probably the cosine law. The only thing you have to remember is right angles, you use SOHCAHTOA. So again, you don't know an angle and its opposite side, so you can't use the sine law. There's no right angle, you can't use SOHCAHTOA. Then the only thing left is the cosine law. Let's move to the examples. Okay guys, let's take a look at example 1, part A. It says solve the triangle. Whenever it says solve the triangle, it means find everything that isn't known about the triangle. So in this case, I've already labeled it. We're going to have to find side B. We're also going to have to find angle A and angle C. So if we look, I do not know an angle and the opposite side, so it means it's not sine law. It's not SOHCAHTOA because it's not a right angle. So we are going to be using the cosine law. And what we do first is, if we look, we have right here, side B. So side B squared equals the other two sides squared and added together. That's the part that looks like the Pythagorean theorem. Minus 2, that's always there. These two sides, so 50 and 80, cos of 25, because that's the opposite angle from what the B was. So notice how B matches up with the opposite angle of 25. You can punch this entire thing right here on your calculator, and you'll get this. And then take the squared over, and you'll get this. And that's going to round to 1 decimal place. Now the reason I put all these decimals in this one is because I'm going to have to use this value to find the other two angles, or at least one of them. So that's why I went to that many decimal places. So if we look, I put a box around it, so that's the first part that we've finished. Now, I technically do know an angle, and I now know the opposite side. I could go and use sine law to find angle A or C, but we're doing cosine law today, so we need to practice with that, so I'm going to use cosine law. So the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to find angle A, which means that pairs up with the opposite side, 80. So if you notice, 80 squared, and the opposite angle was A. Get the other two sides squared and added together. Minus 2 times these two sides again, cos of my angle. Now we're going to rearrange this and solve for A. And this is the one that you'll probably want to circle, this question, because everyone usually, if they're going to make a mistake on one of these basic questions, it's this one, cosine law, finding an angle. So what we do first is we take this and this to the other side, and that's why it's minus and minus. This whole thing stays on the right side of the equal sign, and take note, the negative stays as well. Then, since it's multiplied right here, we take this entire thing to the other side. Don't forget to take the negative as well. You can press this on your calculator now if you want. When you press this on your calculator, make sure you put brackets around the numerator and the denominator. Make sure you practice this and punch it in on your calculator here. Then you want to solve for A. Angle A, so the cos goes over, and I get cos inverse of this decimal. Don't forget, negative here, so negative here. We get 124 degrees. And again, I put a box around that so that we can highlight what we found. And then all that's left is to go and do 180 minus the other two angles that we had, the 124 that we just solved for, the 25 that was given. It's the last piece of information. We put a box around it. Makes it easy for the marker to see each of the parts. This is one part, it ends at the box. This is the second part, it ends at the box. This is the third part, it ends at the box. And if you look, you can do the double check. Across from the biggest angle is the biggest side, and across from the smallest angle is the smallest side. Let's move to the next one. When you're using the cosine law and you have three sides, looking at this triangle here, you always solve for the largest one first. So if you look, we're going to be solving for the largest angle, which will be F, because it's across from the largest side. So across from the largest side is the largest angle. So we start with 16 squared equals the other two sides squared and added together, minus 2 times the 12 and the 14. Cos of opposite from 16 was angle F. Now if you're comfortable with rearranging this all in one go, feel free. So we take this to the other side and this to the other side, giving us the numerator here. And then this piece right here will come over and divide. I showed the extra steps over here when we did it the first time. If you need to do those, that's fine. Some people have trouble punching everything in on their calculator, so you might want to just do the numerator first, then the denominator, and then punch in the result here. And then cos goes over and does cos inverse, and if you're comfortable with it, you can just go right to that step. And then next, go for the next largest side. So we're going to be doing next largest angle. So we're going to be going for angle D here. So we end up opposite angle D is 14. So that's where I start. 14 squared equals 16 plus 12, both squared, minus 2 times the 12 and the 16, cos of your angle. And then rearrange it. just like we did before. So this will come over to the other side, this will come over to the other side, these will both be subtract. This, since it's multiply there, will come over and divide. Punch it all on your calculator, or do it in 2 steps if you need to. And then cos inverse will give you this. And then I get E equals the last angle, 180, minus the 2 angles that we already have found. And we're done. Okay, guys, so you can see your homework there. We'll be doing this tomorrow in class. Have a good night.